The story I'm about to tell happened to a woman named Leticia, and she hates admitting that for a long time she ignored the signs. She only understood the danger when it was already too close, too real. Leticia lived in a small town in Minas Gerais, Brazil, a quiet rural state known for farms, hills, and long winding roads. The kind of place where danger feels like something distant, meant for cities, never for somewhere so calm. One ordinary morning, she went grocery shopping like she did every week. The supermarket was small, with narrow aisles and concrete floors. A familiar place, safe, predictable. And that's where she saw him for the first time. He was stocking bottles on a shelf. She immediately noticed he must have been new because she had never seen him before. His uniform looked slightly oversized, like it belonged to someone else and he just ended up inside it. When she walked past him, he slowly lifted his head, as if he already sensed her presence. The way he looked at her wasn't normal. It wasn't friendly curiosity. It wasn't casual interest. It was long, focused, intentional. Leticia forced a polite smile and kept walking. A few minutes later, she realized he had appeared again in another aisle. Not close enough to speak, just close enough to watch. When she finally reached the register, she noticed he had moved again, now standing near the exit, stacking boxes that clearly didn't belong there. As she walked past, he finally spoke. "You always come here around this time?" She answered quickly, yes, but only out of habit. He nodded, still staring, like he was memorizing every detail. "Good to know," he said quietly. At that moment, she didn't understand what he meant, but later, those 3 words would haunt her. After that encounter at the market, Leticia tried to go back to her routine. She told herself nothing was wrong, nothing serious, nothing worth overthinking, just stress, just a strange moment, nothing else. Except things didn't stop there. Phone calls started. The kind of call that doesn't speak, only listens. No words, no noise, just quiet breathing on the other end, steady, intentional, patient. Then, handwritten notes appeared at her gate. Short sentences, no name, no explanation. "Do you live alone? Do you sleep well? I liked the green shirt yesterday." That's when she began paying attention. Cars parked in the same spots every day. People slowing down when she walked by. New social media accounts following her, no profile picture, no posts. Still, nothing was direct, nothing violent, nothing she could point to and say, "This is proof." It was all just consistent. What finally made something inside her collapse was one night, after work, when she noticed something off with her front door. The lock wasn't broken. There were no scratch marks, nothing damaged. But the key turned smoothly, too smoothly, like someone had oiled it recently. She stepped inside slowly. The air felt different, almost dense, like someone else had just been there. Everything looked untouched. Except one thing. On the center of her dining table lay a printed photograph. It was a picture of Leticia sleeping. Hair messy, breathing calm, wearing the oversized shirt she only used to sleep. But that wasn't the worst part. Written on the bottom corner in red ink was the date. 2 days earlier. Leticia stared at the photograph longer than she should. She tried to rationalize it, force some explanation, but nothing made sense. She hid the picture in a drawer, as if burying it could erase its existence. But the feeling didn't fade. Everything shifted from unsettling to undeniable. It wasn't just the idea of being watched anymore, it was the chilling certainty that whoever was doing this had already been inside her life far longer than she realized. Without consciously deciding, she began testing tiny details, placing objects in exact positions, marking doors with tiny dots of pen, leaving strands of hair in specific spots. Every night, something was slightly different. Not enough to call police. Not enough to prove anything. But enough to make her body stiffen every time she entered the house. A mug turned the wrong direction. A pillow angled differently. A window unlocked, though she remembered locking it. Her body responded before her mind. Sleep became shallow. Every sound felt close. Every flicker of light outside the window made her heart race. She noticed things she couldn't ignore. A cologne she didn't recognize, lingering near the hallway. Footprints near the gate larger than her own. A shadow pacing behind her car whenever she drove home late. Whoever it was, wasn't hiding anymore. And one night, everything crossed a line. She arrived home and saw the bedroom light glowing through the window. She knew she had turned it off before leaving. Her pulse quickened, but she kept walking, slow, careful, controlled. Inside her bedroom, the truth finally stood in front of her. On her pillow sat a neatly wrapped present, tied with a red ribbon. Not rushed, not sloppy, placed with deliberate tenderness. Next to it, a handwritten note. "You look prettier when you don't know I'm watching." Her hands trembled as she opened the package. Inside, folded perfectly, was the same oversized shirt she wore in the photo. Except now, it had been washed. She told me she woke up with that instinctive feeling that someone was inside the room. Not a sound, just a presence. The kind that makes your body react before your thoughts catch up. Leticia stayed still. She tried to convince herself it was anxiety playing tricks on her. Then the voice came quiet, steady, disturbingly familiar. "You sleep better now," she said. Her body froze. Her breath felt trapped in her chest, and shouting didn't even feel like an option. Whoever was behind her wasn't rushing or panicking. He was comfortable, like he belonged there. Eventually, she heard him walking away. The door opened slowly, as if he knew she wouldn't move until Faucetard Deme. When Leticia finally stood up, the house felt empty again. But the next morning, the door was unlocked. And sitting right next to where she slept was a photograph taken while she was sleeping that same night. In the corner of the picture, barely visible in the dark, stood a man, smiling. Not for the camera, for her. Maria grew up on a small farm in the interior of Pará, a vast and lush state in northern Brazil, known for its dense tropical forests, wide rivers, and a humid heat that never seems to relent. To an outsider, Pará might sound like a distant, wild place, full of untamed nature and isolated communities. But for Maria, it was just daily life. Waking up early, feeding the animals, tending the crops, and losing herself in the sounds of the surrounding forest. That year, the farm felt quieter than usual. The wind rustled through the trees, stirring leaves and casting shadows that danced across the wooden walls of the main house. Maria moved through the rooms, completing her tasks. But there was an odd sensation in the air, subtle, almost imperceptible. She told me that at first, she couldn't pinpoint what was making her uneasy. There were no obvious signs, no clear sounds, just the feeling of being watched, of something in the forest around the farm that wasn't there by chance. And so it began. On an otherwise ordinary afternoon, that small, strange occurrences started piling up, one by one, like pieces of a puzzle she wasn't ready to assemble. Tiny details, so trivial they could have gone unnoticed, yet together they formed a pattern that no one should ignore. Maria spent that night on edge, pacing from one side of the room to the other. She told me she could hear every tiny sound the wind carried, a strange smell of wet soil and old wood mixed with something metallic, almost like iron. Every time she lifted the lamp to look out into the yard, there was nothing there, but the feeling of being watched never faded. The next morning, she found new footprints near the barn prints that didn't belong to any animal on the property. Her heart raced, but she tried to rationalize it. Maybe a farm worker showed up late, or someone had wandered in from the dirt road that cut through the land. But when she followed the trail more carefully, she noticed something unsettling. The footprints stopped abruptly, as if the person had just vanished. Over the next few days, small signs continued stacking up. Tools in the shed out of place, muddy tracks appearing randomly in the yard, doors slightly open, even though she knew she had locked them. She told me she started feeling a constant weight on her shoulders, like someone was silently watching her every move. She avoided going outside alone. She checked over her shoulder constantly. She slept less. One night, while watering the garden, Maria froze. In the shadows near the edge of the forest, she saw a tall, thin figure still, almost blending into the trees. She said she tried to call for someone, but no sound came out, as if fear itself had taken control of her voice. The figure didn't move, it just watched. When she finally forced herself to turn and run, she noticed something else, fresh footprints surrounding the house in a perfect circle, too many to be ignored, too many to be an accident. And that's when she understood. This wasn't someone passing by. This was someone studying her. Someone patient. Someone waiting. That same night, the stillness of the farm finally broke by something that made Maria run without looking back, convinced the presence hiding in the shadows had finally decided the waiting was over. Maria woke up late that morning, sunlight leaking through old, stained curtains. The heat was returning, thick and humid, but there was something else, the silence. Not the usual quiet of the countryside, a heavier silence, the kind that feels intentional. After breakfast, she decided to explore the house, maybe to distract herself, maybe because some part of her needed answers. Behind the main house, almost swallowed by tall weeds, was an old storage shed. The wooden door looked like time itself had tried to destroy it and failed. She pushed it open and was hit with the smell of dust, dried leaves, and rust. Inside were old tools, broken furniture, stacked boxes, and a locked chest with a rusted padlock. There shouldn't have been anything strange about it, yet something felt wrong. The lock had scratch marks on it, fresh ones. Maria felt a cold shiver run down her spine. No one else should have been there. Still, she found a metal bar among the objects and forced the lock open. Inside were documents, fragile with age. Property reports, receipts, resident lists, until she found something separated from the rest. A thin envelope sealed with broken wax. One sentence was written on the front: "Do not open if it's still here." She opened it anyway. Inside were medical papers, pictures, and handwritten notes. The photographs showed residents, workers, families, all normal until she found one that didn't fit. Several men holding something covered by a dark cloth. On the back of the picture, rushed handwriting: "Buried so it can't return." The envelope also contained newspaper clippings from the late 1972 documenting disappearances, people who were never found, and one word appeared again and again: the Sentinel. No explanation, no description, just a name shadowing every record. When Maria lifted her head, she noticed the shed door was now slightly more open than before. A soft breeze entered, making the papers flutter. That's when she felt it, the same presence from the night before. Only this time, it wasn't outside. It was in the room with her. Maria walked out of the shed, still holding the papers, her eyes fixed on the name that repeated in every document: the Sentinel. The heat felt heavier now, thick and tense, like the air itself was listening. She couldn't stop replaying the sentence written on the back of the photo: "Buried so it can't return." She needed to know what that meant. As she crossed the backyard of the farm, she noticed something she hadn't seen before: a patch of land where the grass grew unevenly. The shape was odd, too symmetrical, too intentional, like someone had dug there long ago and tried to hide it. Maria told me fear wasn't what moved her, it was the need to understand. She grabbed a rusty shovel leaning against the shed and walked to that spot. The soil was compacted, but not naturally, more like something once buried there fought time and silence. Minutes passed. Then the shovel struck metal. Maria stopped breathing. Beneath the dirt was a metal container, old, rusted, and covered in markings. Not scratches, symbols. Symbols that felt like warnings. She hesitated. But curiosity won. With trembling hands, she forced the latch open. Inside, at first, she saw fabric, a rough cloth wrapped around something long. Then the smell escaped, thick and damp, like decay trapped for decades. She pulled the cloth. It was a mask. Not a carnival mask, a carved wooden face with exaggerated features, hollow eyes, and a mouth stretched unnaturally open, like a silent scream frozen in time. The wood was cracked, as if it had aged under pressure or resisted something. But the mask wasn't the worst part. Under it, Maria found a broken iron chain and an empty indentation shaped like something once rested there. Something human-sized. Something that had been removed. Maria told me that was the moment she finally understood the warning. Buried, so it can't return. But it did. And as she stared at the mask in her hands, she realized something was behind her, a shadow that wasn't there before. A shadow that was moving. For a moment, Maria told me she truly believed the shadow behind her was something supernatural. A spirit, the Sentinel. Everything fit too perfectly: the buried box, the inscription, the empty space, the strange symbols, the mask. But when she finally turned around, the truth hit harder than any legend. The shadow wasn't a spirit. It was a man. Thin, filthy, clothes torn, face partially covered with a dark cloth. He held a long knife, rusted, stained, and clearly used before. His breathing was heavy, almost animalistic, and the most disturbing thing, he didn't speak. Maria froze. Her body reacted before her thoughts did. Adrenaline, shock, instinct. She was still holding the mask, but now it meant nothing. The Sentinel wasn't real. It was a story locals invented to explain disappearances no one wanted to investigate. Disappearances caused by a real human predator. A serial killer who had been stalking the rural region for years, maybe decades, living in the shadows, hunting the isolated and forgotten. And he was standing right there, just a few steps away. Maria didn't think she reacted. She threw the wooden mask straight at his face and ran. She said she didn't feel her feet hitting the ground. She didn't even breathe. She just ran. Behind her footsteps, fast, focused. She reached the house, slammed the door, locked it, and pressed her back against it, hearing the wood shudder as he tried to force his way in. She grabbed the landline and dialed the police with shaking hands. Her voice was barely understandable, but they heard enough. Then suddenly silence. No footsteps. No door shaking. Nothing. And she said the silence was worse than the attack because silence meant he was still there, waiting. When the police finally arrived, they searched everything. They found footprints, a hidden fire pit in the forest, and scraps of food. He had been watching the farm for a long time, but he was gone. The documents and mask were taken as evidence, and Maria moved away not long after. When she told me this story, her voice was steady, but her eyes dizzyam outracoisa. She said, "I was scared of a legend, but in the end, what chased me had lungs, hunger, and the desire to kill."